All right. So I have made plenty of videos showcasing how great the Pocket is and all the great things you can do on it. And, just like with any device out there, nothing is perfect and nothing is above scrutiny. There are a lot of things that you can pick on, certain things that might bother me more than other people, or just things that bother everybody altogether. Now, what I do want to do is I want to talk about some of these things that at least bother me, and I just want to share with you my opinions on what you might expect if you haven't gotten it yet. Just that way you have an idea what to look at. And some of these things that I might talk about, they might be fixing. Some of them might be software, some of them might be hardware that can never be fixed. These are just things that maybe they can fix in another revision if they go that route. But, this is just stuff just to keep everybody in mind. This is always just my opinion. I just want to share with you my thoughts on the good, the bad. There's just, nothing's perfect, essentially. So let's get into the video. And without further ado, please like and subscribe to the channel. You guys have been awesome. It's been helping me out a lot, and let's get into it. Hey, so like I mentioned before, I'm going to be trying to focus on the cons when it comes to this video. Now, just like I mentioned, like every other device, there are issues. You're going to have stuff like with the Nintendo Switch, the kickstand was really not great and it would break very easily. This is no exception. You're going to have things that people don't like. Some of this might be my opinion, stuff that I don't like, other people might not have issues with, but I just want to share with everyone things that I see could be problematic and maybe stuff that can get fixed with a future revision. So let's just show you the very first things that I noticed. Now, one of the biggest things I would say is this can move very easily. So the game, if you accidentally bump it, you can definitely pop it out. It doesn't take much to move this. It takes a simple tap and it comes right off. And that's it. Like, it really takes no time at all to push this out of place. And if you're playing a game that could suck, you can lose all your saves. Not necessarily your saves on the actual thing itself, but you can lose your progress up to so far. Now, let's go over another, I would say, con that I have. And obviously, I'm not going to be going through everything. There might be other things that people have discovered that I haven't seen yet, or they just might not bother me. So, like I said, this is a very subjective. This is more towards me. And that being said, some of this stuff might also be more indicative of Analogue as a whole. And for example, they're just, that obviously people are having issues getting this. That's not really a problem with this. I would say some of their other stuff, like having to get, for example, I would say like the screen protector, like stuff like that. But that's more a problem with Analogue itself. And I'm sure there are plenty of people who will have a similar gripes with Analogue on that. Now, one of the things that I noticed, it's not a big deal, but it can be a little annoying once in a while. If you look at the D-pad, it's kind of loose a little bit. It's not like it's completely flush, how some of the other stuff might be. It's not the worst thing in the world. These are very minor stuff. I would say one of the bigger things that I think people will have issues with are the plus and minus buttons. Okay, so that being said, I have to press it with the very tip of my nail to make sure I'm getting the right one. Because if you just try and press it with your thumb, you can get either one. So you can just do mute if you just try and press one or the other. So you do get a bit more precise. Another issue would be the power button here. Again, it's very flush. It's a little bit difficult to press. Another issue I've had is going to be this SD card. Now, in order to get this out, I've had to use the tip of my nail just to get it out. So this is not the easiest thing to remove right here. That being said, if you press it too hard, this thing can shoot out, which is just a general problem of the springs in general. Now, this is very comfortable to play with, but at times, for example, let's just put the Kirby game in here. So if you put the game in, you lose more space. So when it comes to playing with it, it's hard to show it to you. You'll see you'll have a limited amount of space to really click down, and your fingers will rub up against the cartridge. So like I mentioned a bunch of times, these are minor things. And these are things that you would have to live with, especially if you get something of this style. Now that being said, if you got another thing like the unhinged, you're not gonna have the same kind of issues, because for the unhinged, the cartridges come out from the bottom, which is another issue in and of itself. Because whenever you play Game Boy Advance games, Game Boy Color games from the bottom, it really sticks out, and that by itself is kind of an eyesore. If you ever played it, it sticks out in the bottom. So now your hands are touching it down there. So, nothing is perfect. That's what I'm trying to say. And the analog is not without its faults. Now, another thing I would say is you do got to be careful with it. This can get pretty scratched. It's possible for it to get scratched up. Now, it'll be hard to tell. These scratches are very, very light, and unless you shine a light on it, you won't really notice. But you can easily see some of the smudges. I have black. This is where maybe white would have been better off. So you can tell right here, this does get used, but you're gonna see some wear and tear. If you shine on the light on, you can see right there. This is where having a good case would definitely come in handy. So what other ones could I tell you? Now, another complaint could be, but that's more towards analog. You'll have no charging brick, but that's more towards analog itself. I would say now onto the OS. Obviously, I'm recording this February of 2022. The OS isn't complete. I would have preferred to have a complete OS by the time I got my Pocket, but this is not going to be a con for some people who maybe get it later on and everything's already done. So that's just a con for right now at the moment. Now, let me think. Now, one of the other things I would say are compatibility issues. You'll have stuff like the GBX7. Now, my revision says it right here. My revision is C, model 17, revision C. This one has issues. Apparently, the newer ones have no issues. So if you can get a newer one and you have the analog, I'd recommend the new one. There are some other compatibility issues I've seen with the Easy Flash, just compatibility issues. That being said, this was marketed to play all of the same type of stuff that the original could play. That being said, I've even created my own game, for example, or my own background, and added it to a flash card, and that runs perfectly fine, but you'll have other people having other issues. Now, there are some other issues that I've heard of, but I haven't personally had problems with. Apparently, somebody reported that this lifted up a little bit, but that could just be a singular issue by itself. I've seen people have issues with the memory card, but again, that just seems to be a single issue, or even if it won't be that many people. Now, the OS is very good. I've mentioned that before, but there's still work to be done. Again, that probably will be solved by the time some people get this. As you can tell, like I mentioned, the OS, some stuff is still blurred out. That's just more of a problem for now. I would say one of my biggest gripes would be the fact that the actual cartridge can come off very easily. It doesn't take much to bump it off. It takes almost no time to bump it off. It's not really secured, and I'm not too sure how they would have really secured it properly. Maybe having something that allows it to go flush, but then you'll have problems with the LNR button. So that's, there are things I guess you have to deal with whenever playing this. Now, let me see if I can think of any other major issues or even any small minor ones. No, honestly, I think I've mentioned them all. This is a great device. So these are just minor little things. I just figured I'd let everybody know what I've noticed so far this past almost month and a half playing it. So it is a very minor thing. Now, battery life, it varies. That depends. I did a battery test and it goes on pretty good. It hits its target area. So, I don't have any gripes against it. Depends on how long you're playing it. There's really no battery life difference between an EverDrive Game Boy Advance game and an original Game Boy Advance game. There, there just seems to be pretty much the same there. Hey, so one last, I think, issue I would say I have with this. Now, like I mentioned before, this is more of an analog issue. Their price is pretty expensive. And that being said, I've seen it go as much as $700 on places like eBay, but the original price would have been $200, and then they even recently increased the price. So, like I said, that's more of an analog issue. That's not the hardware issue itself. The hardware is very good. So that's just one last thing I wanted to add before I end the video here. And thank you everyone for watching. You guys are awesome if you made it this far, especially if you made it this far. All right, everyone, have a good one.